Hi, my name is Mark. I invented a new kind of stitch for crocheting. I call it Siberian stitch. You can check out more at siberianstitch.com, and I'm here today to show you how to do that. Today, what we're going to be doing is showing how to do a simple form of the Siberian stitch. Most people who are going to do this probably already know how to crochet. I'm going to go a little bit slow to begin with for those who don't know how to crochet. And I'm using an H-sized hook. And for the pot holder on the tutorial page, I would normally use a G. And I'm going to crochet very loosely so it's easier to see what's going on. Also, with the Siberian stitch, the looser you crochet to a certain degree, the better off you'll be. If you crochet too tight, it's hard to catch the proper loops, so you won't be able to see what you're doing as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 26. Then what you have with this chain is each loop on this has 3 separate portions to it. And the way I was taught is this is the back loop and this is the front loop. And what we're going to be doing at this point is starting from the second loop from your hook, you want to insert the hook into the front loop and complete a single crochet. And that's how we want to do that all the way through. It's much easier to turn the chain over and to continue this way, but it's always going to be the front loop. And a lot of veteran crocheters already know this, but if you use a lighter yarn, it's easier to do the crocheting. If you want to do this with a dark yarn, one tip I've heard is to put a white cloth on your lap so it's easier to see what you're doing. But black can be a very miserable yarn to crochet with. And now here is the last of this row. Then, as usual, chain 1 and turn. So here we have a single crochet front loop only. And what you want to do at this point is to catch the front loop of what is now the front loop of the chain row and what is the front loop of the previous row. See, we're not catching both of the loops of that row. We're just catching the one that's in front here, the one that's toward you. And then you do a single crochet through both of those loops. And here's the second stitch. You catch the last loop of your chain row and this front loop of the previous row. Not both loops, but just that front one. And you crochet through both of those as if you were doing a single crochet. So you insert through this loop and then that loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through. And that is the Siberian stitch. This is also the hardest part of the Siberian stitch to get. Once you get a couple of rows into this, it is so much easier to do. But you're inserting through 2 separate loops before you yarn over and complete what would otherwise be a regular single crochet. Now, if you were crocheting too tightly, it would be very difficult to get the hook through this loop and that loop because the material wouldn't be quite as pliable. So it's very important not to do this too tightly. And here we are at the last stitch of the first Siberian row. And that's what I like to call row 1. The chain and the single crochet front loop is what I call the foundation. So here's the end of row 1, and you chain 1 and turn. So now it's a lot easier to see that you want to catch this one loop here and that one loop there. So just like the previous row, you want to catch 2 separate rows, 1 loop from each. Two loops, 1 from each of the previous 2 rows. And you do not want to catch, let's see if I can arrange this a little better. You do not want to catch both of those loops from that row, because that will end your ability to do the Siberian stitch. You want to get just one of those 2. No, I'm confusing myself here. Oh, we're at the end of the second Siberian row. Chain 1 and turn. And it's a lot easier now to see where you're going. The first couple of rows are hard because you can't see which of these loops you need to catch. But that loop and that loop, there and there, and we'll do a couple more stitches here, and I'll turn it over and show you the other side, and it just gets progressively easier to tell where you're going with the Siberian stitch. You want this row and that row, and you just keep moving along, and eventually you'll get a pot holder. Now we'll skip ahead to the end of the pot holder and show you how to finish up. We're coming up on the end of the Siberian stitch pot holder. This is row 36 of the Siberian stitch. That's not counting the chain row or the original single crochet front loop only. So at the end of row 36, we're going to chain 1 and turn as we have all along. And notice how floppy this is. That's because I'm using a larger hook so you can see more detail, and I'm trying to keep it a little looser so you can see the loops on the yarn a little easier. So at the end of row 36, we chain 1 and turn. Then row 37 is what I call the Siberian finish. We catch this last loop on row 35 and go through both loops on row 36, having a little hard time getting that. So we want to catch all 3 of those loops now that you didn't want to catch before. And that's how you Siberian finish. Catch this loop and both of those, to Siberian finish. And the shorthand on my website is SBC for Siberian crochet and SBF for Siberian finish. And we'll just rush to the end of the row here. And then you would cut the yarn, pull it through like you normally would to finish off whatever you're doing. And this is what it'll look like on the back. And this is a Siberian stitch pot holder.